It's easy to take the same route. There's over 50,000 miles of California state highway, and it only takes you to well-known destinations. But if you veer off the highway system, I mean really off it, away from the city streets, far from your neighborhood boulevard, you may just find yourself on one of Bartell's back roads.
If you like the open road, California is the place to be. Whether you're on the coast or up in the foothills, there's endless back roads to explore. Over the next half hour, I'm gonna take you on a little journey to some of my favorite road trip destinations. First stop, we're heading up to the Mendocino Coast, where we're gonna do a little rail bike riding through the redwoods.
Hiding below a towering redwood forest on the Mendocino coastline is a bike ride like no other.
Well, we've had a lot of rain, so this looks almost like a postcard for Ireland out here.
This is the historic Western Railroad track in Fort Bragg. And this is a rail bike.
So they're mostly off-the-shelf parts. The wheels are obviously very specialized.
Our cycle conductor on this ride is Rick Hinman.
I believe the actual position would be rail bike guide.
The pedal-powered locomotive rides on what's known as the historic Skunk Train track.
It's a former logging train. It began passenger operation in the early 1900s.
It's called the Skunk Train because of the stinky exhaust that comes out of the locomotive. But you won't find any pollution on the rail bikes.
Good news is if you have kind of a lazy passenger, you got this thing, a nice little electric powered throttle.
All the rail bikes are electric powered, allowing you to silently cruise through the redwood forest and take in the scenery.
Really electric green, and you can see all these horsetail ferns growing on the side. And
below this canopy of green is the Noyo River Estuary, a pristine redwood forest that survived centuries of destruction brought on by man. The rail bike ride is just a 7-mile round trip, and thankfully, Rick turns those rail bikes around for you. So that way on the way back, you have a second chance to take a picture if you missed anything.
All right, well, while you're out in Fort Bragg, you should check out another man-made structure. See how a landfill turned into a tourist attraction over at Glass Beach.
Glass Beach gets its name because of the rounded glass fragments that litter the sand. This spot was one of 3 ocean garbage dumps for residents. From about 1906 to about 1967, locals threw in and burned trash on this beach. That is until the State Water Resource Board and local politicians closed it. You can still see some of the garbage today, but most notable is the glass. Years of pounding waves broke down pottery and glass and made it smooth. State Parks purchased the beach back in 2002. Today, Glass Beach sees around 1,000 tourists a day. Because of that, most of the glass has been picked off the beach.
All right, so if you do decide to come out here, make sure you leave the glass. Looking for a place to beat the heat? Why not go where the sun doesn't shine? In Fresno, there's an underground garden where temperatures are often 15 degrees cooler than it is on the surface.
It gets hot in Fresno. Sometimes really hot. It's hard to escape the sun when more than 99% of the city is dirt and asphalt. Most of the water that feeds this agriculture mecca is underground. And underground is where it's much cooler.
And as you can feel, we're about 15 degrees cooler down here than we are up top.
Beneath the hot and arid surface of the San Joaquin Valley is Baldesarra Forestier's underground garden.
Just watch your step.
Cami Cipolla is our tour guide today.
He worked for 40 years total down here, from 1906 to his death in 1946.
Baldesarra was a Sicilian immigrant who came to America in 1901 with the dream of becoming a citrus farmer. That dream was crushed, though, after he unknowingly bought 80 acres of unusable land in Fresno. The hardpan soil was no good for growing citrus, but the soil underneath the hardpan would prove to be usable.
He would start off some trees and then move them into different areas.
Baldesarra grew a variety of fruit underground, even this tree that once grew 6 different kinds of fruit.
It had at one time when he grafted it. We are sadly down to 2.
By the time Baldesarra was 44 years old, he had excavated and planted over 10 acres, and he did it with simple tools like a pick and a shovel.
We always joke around, that he only had 2 helpers during this whole experience, his mules, Molly and Dolly.
Baldesarra was a visionary, and he had grand plans to open this up to the public as a place to cool off in the summer.
He would say, the visions in my mind almost overwhelm me. So he would just get these grand ideas and just want to keep going with it.
Unfortunately, Baldesarra died at the age of 67 from pneumonia. He never officially got to open up his underground garden to the public, but thankfully his family did. And today, you can take a tour 6 days out of the week.
The warm summer nights are great for stargazing, but that light pollution in the city makes it a little hard to see the constellation. To get some of the darkest skies in California, you should head over to the Eastern Sierra in Noyo County.
We are situated here at an old gold mine called the Polita Mine.
If you're looking for a front row seat to the Owens Valley sky, you may want to head to the Eastern Sierra Observatory and stay a night in a shift pod.
Very cool, spacey looking tents, built for the desert, really.
There's no cable TV, no air conditioning, and no running water, except for the hot tub. But what this place lacks in amenities, it makes up for in a spectacular night sky.
Well, as far as like a zoom factor, I mean, we're magnifying them by 200-300 times.
Scott Lang is the astronomer here at the Eastern Sierra Observatory, and the Owens Valley sky is beyond ideal for his massive 14-inch telescope.
Out here it's special because there's not a lot of light pollution and the skies are really dark.
Sitting at about 5,800 foot elevation, the Eastern Sierra Observatory is also closer to the stars, and that means a better picture.
We took a picture of the Whirlpool Galaxy, Messier 51, and then we took a look at Jupiter, and you could see the 4 moons.
Scott teaches astrophotography at the observatory. He'll even hook up your own camera to his telescope. The skies are always changing. Right now it's June, and Jupiter and its moons are closer than ever.
If I had to pick a favorite constellation, it'd be Orion, which has just left us until next fall, so no more Orion.
The sky in the Owens Valley is huge, and so are the stars. It's a special place that only exists because the light pollution is so small.
John Bartell here, continuing our journey through some of my favorite roadside attractions. Now, if the sound of roaring water gets you excited, you're gonna like this next story. It involves an underwater rapid.
The Middle Fork of the American River. It's big, it's loud, and it's wild. This is Tunnel Chute.
That's a really deep hole!
It's the only rapid in California that takes rafters underground.
The water is very refreshing today. We are sitting at a nice crisp 48 degrees.
If you want to see Tunnel Chute up close, you may want to hitch a ride with Iowa Sherry, river guide with Sierra Whitewater.
Our next rapid here is going to be Junkyard.
Tunnel Chute is just 6 miles from Forest Hill in Placer County, but the only way to get there is on a raft, and that's because the land surrounding the rapid is a private mining claim.
1865 is when they really started hitting this river hard for gold.
Man may have moved the water here, but by no means did man tame the American River.
Paddle! Yeah! Lake Tahoe's got a lot of great hiking trails, but you probably never heard of the underwater trail at Emerald Bay. It's littered with sunken boats.
Below the emerald-colored water is a graveyard of sunken ships, and it's a scuba diver's dream.
So the underwater trail in Emerald Bay is where you can go and and see some sunken treasures that date to about 100 years back.
In the 1920s and 30s, Emerald Bay was a privately owned resort destination, equipped with a number of boats and barges. In the 1950s, the state acquired the land, but sometime before the transaction, the resort purposely sunk the ships. The boats have been under the water for decades, but this is the first time that the state park has mapped out and marked the underwater trail. Just in case you get lost out here, the Park Service does offer a nice handy informational map.
Well, if a calm canoe ride is more your thing, try Moto Lake, where strange rock formations and extra salty water offer up a unique ride.
Author and naturalist John Muir once described Moto Lake as bitter as the Dead Sea is, yet translucent as Tahoe. But if John Muir was alive today, he may have to describe it another way.
So the lake dropped about 45 vertical feet over 20 or so years, 20 to 40 years.
You won't find another lake in the world with the same kind of features as Moto Lake. It's located just off of 395 on the eastern side of Yosemite, and its history and water loss is as dramatic as the alien-like formations that are poking out of its salty water.
Notice some bubbles coming up every once in a while out there. What's going on?
Yeah, so there are a lot of active freshwater springs, and actually we're about to come up on one right now.
Oh wow, whoa, crazy bubbles.
Hundreds of underground geothermal springs leach mineral-rich water into the lake, and when it does, it creates something called a tufa.
This is a baby tufa.
This is a baby tufa. This is a fresh tufa.
Now, without getting too complicated, tufas are simply just a bunch of minerals piled on top of each other, and there's a forest of ancient tufas all along the lake bank.
So tufa are very fragile when they're exposed to air, essentially. And when the lake drops, all of these tufa towers that we see are exposed and they're not growing anymore. They're only eroding. They're only breaking down.
Oh, so they're dying when they're above water.
Yes.
Naturalist John Muir witnessed the importance of Moto Lake in his lifetime, and naturalists today hope that visitors witness it in their lifetime.
Well, nearly all of California's mountain ranges are accessible to hikers. Well, all of them except one. The Sutter Buttes are off limits to most people. But every once in a while, a few times a year, hikers are allowed to experience what it's like on the world's smallest mountain range.
It towers over Yuba City and casts its shadow on the farmland below. The peaks can be seen from both the Sacramento and the Feather River. It's undoubtedly the most recognizable feature in Sutter County.
There is no trash here. There is no tagging.
The Sutter Buttes. It's the smallest mountain range in the world, and it's Northern California's best-kept secret.
It's like a specially preserved, wonderful place.
To get to the foothills of the Sutter Buttes, you have to pass through not one, but 7 gates. That's because the entire mountain is surrounded by cattle or livestock ranches.
So unless you know somebody or come with Middle Mountain interpretive hikes, you probably aren't going to get in here.
Less than 800 people a year are permitted into the Sutter Buttes. Private landowners limit the number of visitors, and that limitation helps protect the secrets inside the world's smallest mountain range.
Flowers, whether you like to give them or receive them, you're gonna love the spectacular display of wildflowers in Oroville. Next stop, Table Mountain.
The basalt mesa towers over the city of Oroville, and for most plants, this rock is uninviting. That is, most plants, except for native wildflowers. The kaleidoscope of color is a photographer's playground, but the flowers here aren't just there for your Instagram page.
So it's kind of like a signal to pollinators, like, hey, there's something here to eat.
Those pollinators in turn help create new flowers next year. And the only reason these flowers can grow is because of the rainwater trapped inside the basalt rock.
It holds all the water and slowly releases it during the spring, and that's why we have all the waterfalls up here.
During the wet season, Table Mountain is gushing with life. A 5+ mile hike will get you to Coal Creek and Phantom Falls, where along the way, it's not uncommon to spot a frog or even the occasional newt in a stream or a vernal pool. Wildflower season on Table Mountain doesn't last long, and when it's gone for a whole year.
So bathroom breaks are kind of a necessity on road trips, but there's a lone toilet off Highway 37 that photojournalist Pedro Garcia and I don't recommend using.
It's a scenic location nestled between Vallejo and Fairfield. But right off the Highway 37 bridge, there's something not so scenic. Google Maps calls it the lone toilet.
It's gonna be like this the whole way.
And it's really hard to get to.
The big question now is, how do we get over there?
The lone toilet is in the middle of a marsh, surrounded by pools of deep water. The only way to get to the toilet is with a raft. You see, the water is well over my head, and it's freezing.
I made it!
All right, so my rafting skills are not so graceful.
Help!
But at least I made it across with a fully inflated raft, unlike my photographer, Pedro Garcia.
John! Semi-sick. Oh, it's
no! We got a hole! How are we gonna get back? If popping the raft wasn't bad enough, things only got worse once I reached the toilet.
Ah, no.
At least the last person put the seat down. Needless to say, the lone toilet is not much to look at.
Love them or hate them, roadside attractions make for a great Instagram picture. This next roadside attraction takes us to Tuolumne County. Next up, Graffiti Bridge.
But it is just tight, twisty, pretty much downhill all the way here.
The Harley Owners group of Modesto don't usually take roads this dangerous. But today, the group plans to cross Murderer's Gulch and the Tuolumne River using the area's most recognizable bridge.
If you go onto Google Maps and look at this, you can see it quite well. It's a masterpiece.
Its historic name is Ward's Ferry Bridge, but it's commonly referred to as Graffiti Bridge for obvious reasons. The cops around here don't like this kind of art, but it's hard to catch criminals in Murderer's Gulch.
Well, you don't have to be religious to check out this next roadside attraction. The Little Shrine is Northern California's smallest church, but it's open to everyone. And you'll find it right off Highway 45 in Colusa County.
This is God's country. Farmland as far as the eye can see. The view of the Sutter Buttes goes unobstructed here, and the floodwaters of the Sacramento can't reach this spot. There's not much out here. Not much except this.
So we hoe weeds, we take down cobwebs, we sweep.
Just off Highway 45 in Colusa County is quite possibly the smallest church in California. Beatrice and Art Oliveras are the caretakers of the Shrine of Our Lady of Sorrow, but around here, it's known as this.
The Little Shrine, yes, the Little Shrine.
Inside the 8 by 10 foot church, there's only enough room for 2 people to light candles and say a prayer. Despite its location and its size, the Little Shrine is visited pretty regularly.
They leave, sometimes they just say things, get things off their chest, or I really need help.
Not everyone who is drawn to this church is religious, but those who come here often walk away with a religious experience. Locals call this next roadside attraction Big Ears because of the giant satellite dishes that point up to outer space. This final road trip destination takes us to Big Pine, to the Owens Valley. I know what you're probably thinking. This looks like a secret government communication base, and you might think that these satellites are spying on someone or maybe even talking to aliens. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but...
we are not looking for aliens, as far as I know. If they come knocking on the front door, we're not going to say no. So.
Welcome to the Owens Valley Radio Observatory, located just outside of Bishop, California, in the little town of Big Pine.
In Bishop, it's just referred to as the ears, the big ears.
Locals call it Big Ears because they think researchers like Travis Powell are listening for something. But once again, I'm gonna have to disappoint.
No, we're not listening. We never put on headphones and actually listen to what the telescope picks up.
So what exactly are these giant dishes doing?
Our main project going on right now, CO Map, which stands for the Carbon Monoxide Mapping Array Pathfinder.
That's a big word
Big
there.
word, yeah.
CO mapping is actually just one of several projects going on here at Big Ears. The Owens Valley Radio Observatory is one of the largest university-operated radio observatories in the world. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of what's done here is way over my head. But the good news is, the Radio Observatory is open to the public. And if you take a tour, you can ask as many questions as you want.
So it looks at 2,500 blazars and active galactic nuclei over the course of a week. It looks at that one, a couple thousand of these.
Did you just make that word up there?
No.
Well, if you like these road trip destinations, you can create your own map over at abc10.com/backroads. Check out our interactive map and create your own adventure. And hey, if you got any more ideas for me on where I should go next, send me a message on my Facebook. I'm John Bartell. Hope to see you on the back road. Hey, thanks for watching, and watch more videos just like this. Also, write in the comments where I should be checking out next.